Alrighty, everyone. Well, a very big welcome to you all this evening. I'm excited to speak to you about all things early childhood support and our early childhood support program here at Everyday Independence, and what it truly does mean for our children, our families, and ultimately our communities across Australia as well. I hope that we really showcase to you tonight about what this could mean for you if you came on board as part of our Everyday Independence team, as part of our early childhood support. Our early childhood support teams are made up of key workers who are often teachers, and it's great to see so many of you here tonight as well. Our teams also consist of allied health professionals with OT, speech, physiotherapy, positive behaviour support, and more. And I think the diversity of the practitioners that we have really shows how holistic we need to be when working with children and families. So first, oh, my screen's loading. There we go. We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which our sites are held. We pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders as the first people of Australia. And I'm going to start this evening on our why and tell you a bit about it. This is the second thing we do at Everyday Independence in every meeting or opportunity that we have together. And we talk about it so much that it's really formed a ritual as part of our practice here and drives us for our decision making, why we come to work and what we want to strive to achieve. So we strive to lead and support individuals, their families, communities, and our nation to become global leaders for inclusion. At Everyday Independence, we start our day with our why, and we hope you can see how we actually embed this as part of our practice, our training, our support structures, and what we do on the ground as key workers. Leaning in from this, our values are so ingrained with the social model of practice, which is a model that we are very proud to be leading in a space for and celebrate at every chance that we can get. And our values are the first principles that drive the way that we grow, evolve, and enhance our services at our organisation. So whether you're a participant using our services or an EI employee, everyone is focused on building skills, confidence, and achieving their personal goals. And you're going to see tremendous examples of that tonight with Mel and Kate and the stories that they're going to share. Whilst I won't talk about all of the values, I will talk about one example of inspire with belief. We think it is really exciting to actually ask a child with their NDIS supports, what is it you want to be when you grow up? And we work with this child and their family to scaffold supports and see what they need to realise their potential. Now, pre-NDIS, it was actually very difficult to ask that question of what do you want to be when you grow up, because they didn't necessarily have the support structures in place or the reasonable and necessary assistance to build them up to that opportunity. So our early childhood support program uses NDIS funding to support children and families to dream big, but also to dream of a normal, everyday future that everyone has the right to pursue. And I'm hoping that maybe that's an opportunity that you can be a part of. So across Australia, I'm really excited to say that we offer this support nationally. So we have 40 hubs across 6 states and have approximately 900 team members at Everyday Independence. So we are passionate about building a workforce that is fit to continue to service children and families, regardless of what part of Australia they're living in, metro, regional, remote. We want to be there, part of that journey. And we are very lucky to be part of that chance for them to grow, develop, and pursue all things that parents dream for their children to achieve. We are also committed to supporting families to access services sooner. And we hear a lot about that in the NDIS space, particularly in the media, around how important it is to have early access to services, have great value for money, and making sure that those supports are evidence-based as well. So let me have the honour of introducing you tonight to our wonderful panelists this evening. Mel, I'd first love to start with you. And you've worked in the field of early childhood intervention for most of your working career. Your initial training was an early childhood teacher, but you've also completed additional training in specialist education and early childhood support. You're a passionate advocate, and it's a very contagious passion around the importance of early childhood intervention and also making sure it marries up beautifully with best practice and evidence. You have had a range of roles here at Everyday Independence and absolutely having meaningful and lasting change with every single person that you cross paths with. So you are working as our EI Early Childhood Practice Lead, and you collaborate with all of our wonderful advanced therapy mentors in that space. So thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Pleasure. Thanks, Danielle.
And Kate, I'd love to introduce you as well. You have over 14 years of experience in schools and preschools before coming on board to the EI team. You have a master's in specialist education, and you've pivoted your career to these skills in a really impactful way. Within the key worker role, you took a holistic approach to support the whole child. You championed inclusion while working closely with children, families, and their educators along the way. And you mentioned to me that you especially enjoy supporting communication and language development as well. But beyond the direct support with families, you've advanced your career as part of your journey here, and you've gone from a key worker to a key worker mentor, and now working very closely with Mel as an advanced therapy mentor, supporting a number of different clinicians across Melbourne or Southern Melbourne. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And whilst I don't have another photo on here, I am just going to quickly introduce our other Mel as well, who is our wonderful talent acquisition representative here tonight as well. And she will be speaking to us all later on about all of the wonderful ways in which you can get in contact to learn more about these opportunities. But first and foremost, Mel, let's jump over to you. As I mentioned, you've had a tremendous career, and I would love for you to share with us this evening a bit more around why Everyday Independence supports have really led the way for early childhood intervention, and what do you think it's important for our listeners to know tonight and to hear?
Thank you, Danielle. Absolutely. Everyday independence, I guess, for everyone, firstly, to know that there is approximately 5% of children in Australia that are requiring additional supports. So 1 in 5 children are requiring these supports. So a huge number of children and families that are needing additional supports to engage and participate both in their home and their community. So I guess we are really fortunate here at Everyday Independence that they have been committed from the very start and the introduction of the key worker model around the evidence-based key worker model that we implement here. And they've done a lot of research and discussed with families around the key elements of a best practice model, and have developed and aligned these practices with how we implement and support families. So it's really fantastic, the passion that everyone has around these best practice model, and I guess the data that we've got from families around the value that the model has enhanced and enhanced their capacity as a family. So yeah, we're very fortunate here that we implement the model and continue to evolve our processes and our training and our mentoring of staff to make sure that we are implementing these key practices within our work with families.
Beautiful. And Mel, when you speak about evolution, if we think back 4 years ago or 5 years ago with our early childhood support model to where it is now, it has been such an evolution. How have you
Absolutely.
found the change between it?
Absolutely. I think when I first started, we were really we had many allied health professionals working in the key worker space, as we still do. But we also were then really carefully recruiting teachers into the space and seeing the importance of teachers who have a holistic view of childhood development and the added value that they can bring along to the model. So our teams have definitely evolved across our hubs, where we have key worker mentors and key worker leads who support a range of these allied health professionals and teachers that work very closely together to work on outcomes for families and build the capacity, as we say in our key worker space. So build the confidence and competence of families to, achieve their dreams for their child and their family as a whole. So we have definitely evolved. There's been changes within the NDIS space, and we are very receptive to those changes and continue to review and implement things within the model.
Beautiful. And there's a huge theme there around collaboration and hearing feedback from our key stakeholders, whether it's the NDIS, a parent, a family, an educator, an allied health professional. It's the teamwork makes the dream work.
Absolutely, yes. A whole host of collaboration occurs within the ECS space, but we also have the opportunity to collaborate internally with other professionals within the organisation as well. So that really, I guess, strengthens your skills and enables you to grow as a therapist or a teacher here at EI as well.
Beautiful. Well, let's have a look at a little bit more of the model itself. So I might go to the next slide, Mel.
Great.
Tell us more
Thank you.
about this. Speak to it for us.
Sure, sure. So in the key worker model, we do have a range of therapists. And as you can see from the screen there, we're fortunate to have occupational therapists, speech pathologists, physiotherapists, teachers, social workers, and I'll talk a little bit more around habit coaches as well, who are part of our key worker team. And our key workers, our teachers, implement the key worker model. So they're the main person that delivers the majority of the supports and looks at all of the outcomes that families are working on together, so they can see how they integrate with one another and what key strategies can work across all outcome areas that families want to work on with their child. The key worker also works very closely with the allied health therapists. So their allied health therapists perhaps are delivering supports that might be coming in for 1 or 2 sessions and helping with assessments, or they can be coming along and delivering what we call sprints of therapy, and really targeting core areas of development for children. So we have a close team.
We certainly do. And as an OT myself, I know that I'm working on a number of sprints with families at the moment. And I think it's good to give some examples for our audience that as an OT, for instance, I might be involved for 5 sessions or 10 sessions or a school term. And I think the allied health professionals really work in a targeted way. So I might go into work on toileting skills or dressing. A physiotherapist might work on gross motor skill development to get on the playground. Mel, how have some of our speech pathologists been involved?
Absolutely. So, and as you can see from the model, we're fortunate enough to work in a whole range of different external services, early childhood settings in kindergartens and school settings as well. And, our speech pathologists alongside other therapists can work in those spaces as well. So in terms of delivering a sprint, a speech pathologist may go into an early years service and not only work with the participant, but also work alongside the early years staff members to support them with their understanding of the child's language development and what next steps might be, and help them with really targeted strategies for that environment as well. So all of the therapists can work in that way, and it's really making sure we're individualising the strategies that we're implementing and closely communicating with families and ensuring that those strategies are meeting the needs of that family.
Absolutely.
Can I also mention, Danielle, because we are really fortunate here at EI, and I sort of skipped over them with this visual that we have habit coaches, that some people who are listening to the presentation might have heard the term allied health assistant in the past. We have habit coaches, and we really try to ensure that our habit coaches are an integral part of our child and family teams as well, so that they are working closely with the teachers and allied health therapists to embed the strategies and ensure that they are working closely with the family in an ongoing manner as well to embed those strategies towards the outcomes.
Absolutely. Mel, I think perfect segue. Tell us more about the child and family teams.
Sure. So we also, as I mentioned earlier, there's lots of opportunities for team members here at Everyday Independence, and key workers and allied health therapists are supported. And I think Kate might be talking a little bit more about this further in the presentation, but have a mentor and that is supporting the whole team. Each team might have a different composition of team members depending on the needs of the family and the outcomes that you're working on. But we have access to a range of therapists, and sometimes that could be hub-based, online. Different compositions work at different hubs depending on the needs of that community. So the key worker is really the person that is delivering most of the supports, and our allied health therapists, as I said, are coming in and out depending on the needs of the child and the family. So the important thing is about embedding those strategies into those everyday activities that child is doing and the routines that they're undertaking as part of that family's day-to-day activities. So each family's plan and goals and strategies can look quite different.
Mel, thank you so much. It's such a summary in terms of what the role looks like, but also the team in itself. I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to actually show what the role looks like in the flesh, in the real situation. So I do have a video here, and I would love to now introduce you to Ainsley, Bailey, and Karen, who will take you behind the scenes and show you exactly how a key worker role comes to life.
Hello, I'm Ainsley Douglas, and I'm a 24-year-old stay-at-home mum to Bailey, who's 6 and currently is in year 1 at school. Bailey is very energetic and loving. He is very social, very out there, has no filter, will tell you exactly how it is. So some of the challenges I was facing with Bailey is mainly his behaviour, his meltdowns, just running off from me. I started seeing those behaviours about 3, just constant not listening. Before Bailey was diagnosed, it was didn't know what to do. We didn't understand why he was having all these meltdowns and why we couldn't understand him with his speech. It made me feel undefeated, like I couldn't do anything about it, didn't know what to do about it or get support from.
My name's Karen. I'm an early childhood intervention key worker with Everyday Independence and also a therapy mentor. An early childhood key worker supports families holistically, so we work with the child and family and all of their wider supports, whether it be childcare, kindergarten, school. We support the child and family in any setting where they're experiencing challenges, anything where the family needs some support to help build up the child's independence and participation in the community, we're able to support them there. My first impression of Bailey was that he was a ball of energy. At the moment, we've got a team approach with Bailey's therapy, as myself as key worker is supporting his attendance at school and attending meetings with mum to support her in the capacity building role. We also have a physiotherapist and OT who are working with Bailey to support the development of his gross, fine and core motor skills. And we also have a speech pathologist involved to support his social communication and articulation.
The benefits with an early childhood key worker, we could get onto Bailey's speech quicker. We could get onto his behaviours and directing him in different ways and how to help with his meltdowns. I've known Karen for about 2 years and I love her support and advice that she offers me and Bailey. She is very understanding. She will offer me any support and any advice if I'm stuck on something. She will take the time to understand Bailey and what he needs. We're not running around trying to find all these supports for Bailey, as Karen has helped majorly.
It can be so challenging having a child who's experiencing delays, and it can be a really lonely road. So it's really wonderful when someone can partner with the parent and just give them that little bit of extra support that they need. In the 2 years I've known them, I can see that Ainsley's confidence has really developed in the ways that she can manage Bailey's behaviour. She's learnt a lot of strategies and a lot just of understanding about how Bailey's brain works, which has been really fantastic to see. I really love being a part of the family's life and really partnering with the parents in supporting their children.
Hey, I'm going to do this first. Can you go stand over there? Can you go stand over there, please? All right. I feel very, very positive about Bailey's future with all the support that he has around him with Everyday Independence. The support's amazing and I've seen a massive change. 1, 2, 3.
Put such a smile on my face every single time I see that wonderful video. So I do hope that you find it as heartwarming as what I do. And I think it gives a real taste as to what the role looks like and highlights a lot of the key themes that Mel has already spoken to: teamwork, faster access to supports, working people on long-term journeys, and allowing us to really feel empowered for the future ahead for both obviously Bailey, but also for the family around him as well. Kate, I would love to know, can you tell us more about the role? What does a typical day in the life of a key worker look like? And what is it that you actually do?
Sure. So it's actually quite tricky to say what a typical day as a key worker looks like, because every day is different. Because our days are made up of all sorts of activities. So one thing you would definitely expect to do is home and school visiting. So you might go and see, well, we always initially see a family and a child in their home when we do our initial sessions, as well as if we're working on outcomes that are related to the home. So basically, if we're working on a child increasing participation in one environment, that's the environment where we would hold our sessions, because that's where that capacity needs to be built. So if they've got goals about home routines, then you'll be doing some sessions at home. We also do sessions in early childhood settings, kindergartens and childcares, or primary schools. And even then, that can be different as well, because you might, in some cases, work alongside a child in a classroom. Another day, it might be that you're coming to support them in the playground, you know, with some of those social skills and things like that as well. It might be that you are attending a student support group, like Karen talked about in that video, supporting parents to advocate for their child's needs. Another thing that we might be doing, I've actually got a lot of these scheduled in the next few weeks, is going to a school transition session with the child. to really support them with making that next step in their life. And another one that I've done recently, childcare tours. So trying to find the setting that will be most suitable for that child and family. We also have therapy planning and reporting that needs to be done. So sometimes you will spend time doing that as well. And working with other disciplines like Mel explained. So sometimes you might do a joint session where you're working alongside a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, or a physiotherapist, positive behaviour support as well. Or working with the habit coach, capacity building them so that they can continue to support with those outcomes between your sessions. And lastly, we have lots of professional development opportunities at EI. So some of our days are spent doing those as well, both in-house and accessing external PD.
And there's so many different platforms for the PD. It's really astounding, the infrastructure of what is literally at our fingertips at any time. And I know we'll go into that in more depth soon. Before we move on to the next slide, Kate, you mentioned that we might spend some time doing therapy planning. For our listeners, this might be a bit of a new term. What is therapy planning? How do you plan for therapy?
Definitely. So when I spoke about, our initial to know the family. So we follow a therapy cycle in the key worker space where we are looking at what the family would like to achieve in terms of inclusion and participation for their child. So from there, we determine, well, what are we going to work on in our sessions? What are the goals here? So, it might be something along the lines like Karen spoke about, increasing Bailey school attendance. So that could be one outcome. And another common outcome for our children that we work with is around communication. Another thing might be something self-care or toileting. There's so many different things. So then what we do from there is we therapy plan in that we work out, well, what are the strategies that we are going to implement to help these children achieve these outcomes. So we're not going in blind to each session. We're going in with really targeted evidence-based approaches to help them meet those outcomes.
I love that, Kate.
It's quite
nice
overwhelming. But like I said, there is endless PD opportunities, and there's also working with the other disciplines. So you're continually building your, your little toolkit of strategies and learning what's out there.
A bit like it's a blueprint, and we know that we want to try and build something, but what that end result looks like may continue to be adapted with more things added in and features. Thank you so much for giving us a bit more of a description as to what therapy planning is. Mel, I saw you take yourself off mute.
I know. I really want to jump in as well, because we've had something sort of fairly exciting happen in the early childhood space, in that we have together as a team developed these fantastic practice guides as well around various developmental areas, and they really have been seen very favourably by the team and give some great support and ideas because we can't be experts at everything. So they're really great guides to help team members as a starting point when they're doing their therapy planning.
Brilliant. So we're hearing a lot about what the role is, but break it down for us a bit more. What is it versus what isn't it, Kate?
Okay, sure. So like Mel explained when she used the little diagrams before and the pictures, there's a lot of teamwork and collaboration in the role. So you are probably what would be the central provider of support to that family, but you are not working alone. So you're collaborating with other therapists, you're collaborating with teachers, other agencies, whether it be child protection, VACA, all sorts of different bodies. And it is definitely not single discipline. So we aim with all of our participants to have more than one person supporting that child. Danielle explained before around the social model. So social model is around supporting children in their natural environment to participate and increase their inclusion. So it's not the medical model. We don't have children coming into clinic so that we can work on their deficits or challenges. We're looking at their environment and working out, well, how can we use their strengths to increase their participation and inclusion, and help them reach their goals. It is traveling and working in the community. So like I said before, every day is different. You'll be going from schools to kinders to people's homes. You might do a session in the park, at the pool. It's not sitting at your desk all day. So we do occasionally have, like I said, there's reporting and therapy planning to do. But yeah, definitely not a desk job. We're supporting children, families, and teachers. So we're not working one-on-one with a child. The term that is very embedded through everything NDIS is this term capacity building support. So we're trying to build the capacity of the environment to make the change. We know that a child will spend the most time with their family, then it's their educators or their educational setting, and then therapy is this tiny slither of the pie. So if we're focusing on what we're doing in those sessions, we're not going to achieve anything. But if we're focusing on building the confidence, like Ainsley described, like the confidence of the parent or the teachers to implement the strategies, then that's where we're going to see the achievement. And we do have flexible hours to work around other commitments. But in saying this, some people see these job ads pop up and they think, oh, great, flexible, I can just work during school hours. Definitely not the case at Everyday Independence, because we do have some school-age children who require after-school appointments. So I'm just not saying that every day you need to work until 5:30, but you definitely do need to have some of that availability in your calendar to support those participants with those after-school type goals.
And it's just such a key moment of a person's day in the life of a child. There's so many opportunities to work on. After school routines, sometimes we have people who are masking emotions all day and returning home. And that's when our families really find those moments challenging. And we want to share that space and that support to be with them there. We often hear from our key workers, they go, that's all wonderful, but how many people do you actually see in a day? Kate and Mel, what's your take on that?
Do you want me to take this, Mel?
Go for it, Kate. Yes.
Yeah. So for a full-timer who's not taking on any other kind of mentoring commitments or anything like that, it would probably be 3 to 4 participants a day, usually less on our Wednesday. Every Wednesday morning we meet as a team in our hub, and that's where we do our team meetings, sharing our stories of impact from the week, giving shout outs to the people who have really supported us with our work, and engaging in professional development as a team. So our Wednesdays, we generally do a few less participants, but generally 4 to 3 participants a day is the expectation.
Amazing. So tell us more about the induction model. So we have quite an in-depth model of support, which really takes our practitioners through learning the scope of the role. But Kate, could you speak to it a bit more?
Sure. So our Everyday Flying Start induction model is one where the new starters start with predominantly almost like the theory. So who we are, why we do what we do, and how we work at Everyday Independence. You're really learning what the social model is, why it's best practice, and what that looks like. On the second day, which is a Wednesday, like I said, you'll go in and meet your hub team, your team leader, and you'll start to have some one-to-one supervision. So you'll shadow your clinical supervisor or hub practitioners to see what it's really like going to sessions with them. On days 3 and 4, that's when you'll start to learn about that therapy cycle that I was talking about. So meeting the family, doing some focus assessments to learn more about that child's current skill levels and how that's going to impact upon their outcomes. Starting to learn what our therapy planning procedures are, and what some of the strategies we would use are, like Mel said, learning how to access things like practice guides and things like that, and how we review and report. So you're learning about it. Sometimes it doesn't quite click until you see it in action when you're out with your mentor. So then in week 2, you are still shadowing your supervisor and attending the team meeting, and you'll even have some observations with some different disciplines as well, and you'll have that peer mentoring as well. Then what starts to happen during week 3, rather than going along to see your mentor's participants, you might start to meet some of your own participants, but you've still got your mentor there to lead those sessions and guide you with how they should run, whether it be a brand new participant or somebody who has been handed over to you. And so you can gradually start to take the reins with that. So as you develop the confidence and go, oh yeah, I can have a go of this, you might be the one to start to ask some of those questions and start to interact more with the child. But we very much meet you where you're at. So there are those expectations of, well, it should start to look like this, but if somebody needs a little bit of extra shadowing before they feel confident to do it on their own out of the see one, do one, then that's fine. During that time, you're also doing self-directed learning as well, and having that ongoing mentoring. You complete a competency tool with your supervisor as well, so you can kind of work out, well, where are the gaps? Where am I feeling like I don't understand what's going on? And as well, I don't think I mentioned along here, there's also facilitated discussions as well, where you, alongside all the other new starters for that month across Australia, meet with a experienced mentor who kind of asks you how you're going with taking in all that information, and if you have any questions, and it's a great platform for really unpacking it all.
And then what about ongoingly? So you finish off your induction program, those 4 beautiful weeks are done and behind you, then what?
Yeah, so there's always access to mentoring. So you have your dedicated mentor team leader as part of your early childhood support family team. We have something called everyday therapy mentoring. So there's always, every day there's discipline specific experts who are available online for you to jump into a Teams meeting and ask your questions. So you might jump into a general early childhood support mentor session, or you might go, you know what, this is actually really about behaviors. So I'm going to jump into the positive behavior support, everyday therapy mentoring, to get some strategies off that behavior therapist. We also have something called communities of practice, where we meet once a month as a whole ECS team, and we discuss a topic of interest or a topic that's kind of come up as a need within the ECS space. This month, for example, it's going to be around supporting vulnerable families and what that might look like. We have career and peer coaching. So we have a careers coach who you can meet with as well to develop what we call a grow plan. So that is talking about your own career advancement through everyday independence. Shadowing and observations don't end after your everyday flying start. If you need that extra support from your mentor, they can come out regardless of where you are in your journey. You know, you might be 6 months, a year in, but think, you know what, I'm getting really stuck with home visits, I'm not sure what to do, and your mentor can come out with you. And admin support. They're the glue of everyday independence. We have amazing admin teams that can help you with all things tech, calendar management, all of that type of thing.
We would be absolutely stuck without our admin there for us. I can tell you right now, we love our admin. And what's really beautiful is admin often work really collaboratively themselves. So there's always someone available to assist us in those ways. And Kate, I feel like you've spoken to so many of those factors already with your other component of your induction model. I think the key message for everyone is it doesn't end, and just how completely adaptable this structure of support is in the organisation. And it's nice that we champion being person-centred for our participants, but for our team members as well. So with that, I'd actually love to now go into the Q&A component of things, Kate and Mel. I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen for this because I think it's nicer when you can see all of us on the screen. So Kate, given that you've had the stage, I will start with you. Could you tell us a bit more around the reasons that you transferred into the disability sector, and how did you find it, and what were those transferable skills?
Sure. There was probably a few reasons that made this role so appealing to me. So I had been working in early childhood centres and primary schools for much of my career. And I had at the same time been studying the Masters in special education. So I really wanted to use my new knowledge and find a way to kind of extend myself. I was also, I guess I was becoming a little bit frustrated with the limitations of being a classroom teacher, with being able to really support children holistically and support those families. I wanted to have that relationship I do with all my participants now, with everyone in my class, and have all those conversations. And there just was not enough hours in the day to be able to do that with everyone that I was teaching. I also have a young family of my own, and I was finding it a little bit challenging to work with those set times of kindergartens and making that work with my own children. It was all through COVID and things like that, where I was feeling like, if there's things going on at home, my own child illnesses and things, that was really impacting upon my kinder team as well. There was a shortage of teachers available, and it was just very stressful. So the thing I've really loved is that flexibility here, in that, I can flex to telehealth sometimes. I can change my days if needed, things like that, in a traditional teaching, you can't up and change everybody's session time. So it has been really good like that.
Oh, it would have been so lovely to be able to go, I'm going to do that report later on whilst I'm at home looking after someone, put them to bed, let them rest, and then do a little bit of work on the side if you wanted to. I'd love to know, though, who do you think is right for the role of a key worker?
So I would say, in terms of teachers coming into the role, I think you do need to have a certain amount of experience. I don't think coming in straight after you've graduated or anything like that would really suit, because you need to have that confidence when communicating with other educators and teachers as well. So you need to kind of have that awareness of, well, what it's like to be in a classroom and how we can embed these strategies in a way that's not going to actually make things harder, being realistic and having those conversations at the level of the teachers you're working with. I think people who are really passionate about working with that whole child and have that understanding of the child and not separate from their family, a really good understanding of culture and diversity and how all these things mesh together to impact is really good as well. And I think somebody who has initiative but also isn't afraid to ask for help, because it is quite different. And when you first come in, it can be a big I don't know if how to, like, your brain might explode with all this knowledge that you've been received, and it doesn't click straight away. I always say to mentees, it's about 6 months, and then everything clicks into place, and you think, oh, that all makes sense now. So I think somebody that is willing to persist and take that time to learn those new skills. You can't be afraid to learn something new.
I've written down some keywords here, so I'm going to summarize it for our listeners. You need to be persistent. You need to have initiative. You need to be compassionate. You need to communicate both with your families, but also with your team members and your team leader and your mentor, and just be open to grow and learning.
Yeah, that's it. There's no stupid questions. You need to be willing to be vulnerable and ask the questions.
Yeah. And I know the exact feeling you mentioned earlier around, or is it overwhelmed? Is it, oh gosh, this is just so different? I think the phrase we
Yes.
often use is comfortably overwhelmed. You're
Yes.
overwhelmed by the amount of information and support, but you also have this sense of ease to go, oh, I know it's going to play out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember a great mentor of mine actually saying to me when I'd made a mistake with the way I'd inputted some notes or something, and they said, everything can be fixed. So, you know, it's very overwhelming, especially if you've come from a career, because you are ultimately changing careers. Whereas if you've changed teaching jobs, you're still in the same industry. This is a whole new industry and it is a different career. If you've been comfortable for so long and you know it's your bread and butter, it is, yeah, it's something completely new.
Oh, Mel, thank you so much, Kate. Now, Mel, I've got a question for you. It's a phrase that we constantly hear in the NDIS. What is capacity building? What does it mean, and why is it so important?
Absolutely, and I think both Kate and I have used it throughout when we've been talking tonight. So when we talk about capacity building, I think here, and we talk also a lot about it throughout induction, is the importance of starting where the family is at to begin with and building a relationship with a family, engaging with a family, so that we can actually determine the best capacity building approaches that we might utilize to support a family. So some of the techniques that we utilize to implement and embed some of the strategies might be coaching, a coaching model where we're working very closely with the family and guiding how they are working with their child, or perhaps changes or adjustments, modifications that might be occurring for them within the home or the early years service. We do a lot of modeling. So we come in and you know, work with the child alongside the parent and model perhaps an approach or a way in which we might work with someone, and then allow the family to have a go at that technique as well. So, and provide that coaching and guidance as we go through. We do some direct instruction. We provide lots of information. As I said, we collaborate, and it's about working closely with the family, understanding how much information that they need, how much support they need. So it's very individualized with the approaches and the techniques that we utilize.
Absolutely. And I might actually even keep on going with this NDIS theme whilst we're starting to talk about, you know, the importance of these approaches. We're here at the moment, there is so much change happening in the NDIS space in the sector. What does it actually mean for us at Everyday Independence?
I might jump in, Kate. You can jump in after me if you like. I was going to say how lucky we are at Everyday Independence in that we do have people that are very much abreast of any changes that are occurring within the NDIS. I think that the most recent changes that have occurred, our model is actually very much in alignment of that. So there aren't significant changes that are occurring for us at the moment. That the model that we're implementing, easily aligns with the changes that the NDIS have brought out. They're very much around that capacity building and the social model, and really striving to have that embedded for families and communities. So we are really fortunate with that. There's lots of work that is happening outside of EI around best practice guidelines and foundational supports, and a whole host of things that are happening. But we are very much a part and connected with external services and supports, so that we have the opportunity to have input and you know, expert advice around any changes that might need to happen internally.
So everyone's hearing it right here, right now. We're literally ahead of the game, which is exactly the position where we want to be in. And I guess the other term that we've used a lot that may be new for people is the social model of practice. How does the key worker model align with that?
Do you want to talk a bit more about that, Kate?
I can. So I mentioned it briefly before, but so when we're talking about the social model, we're talking about supporting the participants in their everyday environment. So not bringing them into the clinic and looking at, well, what do we need to fix here? It's around preparing the environment to best support that child. So it might be things along the line if someone has a communication delay, well, what can we do in their environment to support them to communicate? So it might be that we're bringing in visual supports for them to use, so that rather than using verbal communication, they are able to use some low technology AAC, so using picture systems to communicate their wants and needs. It might be that we actually support that team of educators to learn keyword sign to support that child to communicate. So it's around looking at the environment and how can we support the environment to include the child, rather than going, oh, this is a deficit that we need to fix, which is that real medical model of therapy.
And what's so much fun about it, and the highlight of my day and my week, is when I get to go out with practitioners and do those joint sessions together. So whether as an OT, I'm going with a speech pathologist to work on the keyword sign or those different visuals, or as an OT, I'm getting to go alongside the key worker, who is truly, in many ways, the keeper of all that information for the family. The family is the expert of the child, and I just get to come in and focus on those particular skill sets. So I can only sing the praise of what it's like as an allied health professional working with key workers. But Mel and Kate, as key workers, what is it that you love about working with allied health professionals?
You can go first, Mel, if you like.
I think for me, Danielle, I have been fortunate, having worked in the field for a long time, but continue to learn from allied health professionals. And I think bringing the knowledge and the expertise from a range of areas from each discipline, and being able to embed any of those strategies or ideas or approaches to the work that you're doing with a family. And of course, things have evolved over time as well. So there's always new approaches, new ways of working with people, new techniques. So it's great that we have the opportunity to learn so much from others and then be able to see it in action. And some of those capacity building approaches are what we use with one another as well. And so see it in action and then be able to do it and continually learn from one another.
Love it. So before we close off this Q&A section, I would love Kate and Mel just to share with me, the 3 traits that you want to see from our key workers working at Everyday Independence or in the disability sector. What are those 3 key things that you want our listeners to exhibit if they come on board?
Sure. For me, I think it's really crucial that members of the early childhood team, allied health, and from a teaching background have really clear knowledge of child development. What's typical child development? What does that look like, so that we can work with our participants and know where they are with their range of skills. So that's, I guess, my first point, Danielle, that knowledge of child development.
Yep.
Kate mentioned it before, passion for not only working with children, but passion for working with families. And I think that's a big thing that for many people that come into this space, the working alongside families is something quite different that they may not have experienced in perhaps if they've worked in private practice or a school or an early years service. That real connection that we have for families. So really important, passion for working with children and families. And also being able to embed these best practice approaches, being family-centred, being strength-based, being responsive to cultural needs of families or ways of working with families, and that inclusion. So, working out in the community, working with others and building that capacity. So really being able to embed those approaches is important, and to be able to continue to align our model of practice with what is best practice and the evidence around early intervention.
I love it, Mel. Knowledge, passion, embed. Kate, do you have 3 words that you would, or 3 traits that you want our listeners to take away?
Yeah, so Mel's kind of gone with more what would be a really valuable characteristic to bring for the children and families that we work. So I'm going to focus more on what would make you successful in your role. So I think we need people that can be, while we collaborate, but also to be quite autonomous. So to be okay with that, planning your calendar and being organized, and sometimes you will spend the day driving quite a bit to see your participants in those different spaces, and being okay with that as well. I think persistent and determined to overcome the changing roles, and organized. I think you need to be really organized in this role.
I love that. Autonomous, persistent, organized, knowledge, passion, embed. Gosh, that is everything we have spoken about. So I am going to go back to sharing my screen. I may run a few minutes over time, team. And as I mentioned, very happy for us to stay on longer so you can really get an idea of the role. So to bring it all together, why everyday independence? Well, why not? We have spoken so much about the structure of support, and what we know our workforce wants is cause, community, and career. We want to work for an organisation that has a clear purpose, a community of people around you to bring about your best work, and also career progression and opportunities where you continue to grow and change and have excitement within your role. We know that perks are important, so let's quickly talk about it. There's PD budgets, there's flexibility, there's leave, there's career coaching, internal opportunities to continue to grow. We also very much focus on hub life and well-being, so we do have access to an employee assistance program as well, discounts on different online shop opportunities, and the additional perk of 2 well-being days each year. We do also offer relocation benefits as well. So if you are thinking, gosh, I do want to move interstate at some times, the beauty of working for a national organisation is you can relocate almost anywhere across Australia. Remuneration is incredibly important, and we're fortunate enough that we have a very clear base salary structure and additional perks and bonuses as well, so that you can create a salary that aligns with you and what you're hoping to pursue. So if you want to bill an additional few hours each week, support your participants a little bit extra, great, be reimbursed for that. Get the perks and the benefits of it. On the flip side, if you're after more flexibility and flexible working days, absolutely do that and have the day off. I think what's the critical part of this is working alongside your team leader to make sure it aligns for what you want that to look like. We have a wellbeing and inclusion calendar that we celebrate every year. And the reason I wanted to put that in here tonight is actually to say a very big congratulations and celebration for all World Teachers Day this week. I believe it is on this Friday, the 25th, which is just an amazing moment to take our hat off to such an incredible profession, and also for our OTs as well with OT Week. So every hub does different things, whether it's shout outs and recognition of team members in those disciplines to really champion what we do. And it's not only just for the day, but if you look at the calendar here, it's across the whole year that we're really putting the spotlight on inclusion and our industry. So where to from here? Mel, what a perfect segue over to you. Tell us where do we go? What do we do?
Thank you. If you would like to find out more and apply for a role with Everyday Independence, please go to our website, which is everydayind.com.au. We have a wide range of early childhood roles advertised via our website. You can filter by state. If you do have any questions about the roles before you apply, please reach out to our team directly, either by email or phone number.
Amazing, Mel. And I think what's so wonderful is even if you're not sure if this role is for you, you want to know a little bit more about the structure, there's something that's really excited you or made you curious, just pick up the phone. We're happy to have a 15-minute chat with you, catch up over a coffee, and just really talk about it in more detail. So book in a consultation if you'd like. Otherwise, though, at this point of the evening, it is just after 7 o'clock, but we are open to answer any additional questions that would come through the chat. Actually, Mel Walsh, while we're on that, one of the key things is what type of qualifications do I need in this role? Are you happy just to speak to that for a moment?
Of course. So for a key worker position, we would be looking for either a bachelor or master's in early childhood education or similar. We are also looking for social workers, occupational therapists, speech pathologists, and physiotherapists.
Beautiful. The whole team, which really takes it back to Mel Thompson's beautiful image of all the different roles that are so critical to supporting a child and family. Now,
Absolutely.
I can't see any other questions in the chat at this point in time, but feel free to pop them in. If you do need a head off, absolutely, by all means, go for it. Whilst we wait, I can see that Vinny has put up their hand and so has Heidi. Fantastic. I feel that you both have questions. If you can take yourself off mute to ask, please do. Otherwise, feel free just to pop it in the Q&A chat, which is just at the bottom of the screen there. This is always my favourite part, seeing the questions come through. Might be typing them on in there. Whilst we wait for them to come through, Kate, what's your favourite part of the job?
I think probably the like the uniqueness of each day. So the fact that every day is the same thing, I really enjoy that. I think, you know, it's a way to keep you passionate and engaged is not doing the same exact thing every day. And I really love that. I also enjoy working with a range of children and families with such different needs. You know, with some I'm really supporting more so the family with some of those kind of social things, such as, you know, finding the right settings for their child, and capacity building the families. With some of the other children, we're really working on getting those first words out and things like that. So I just love how different it is. You cannot get bored in this role.
Definitely not. There's always something to do, someone to see. And I know, Vinny, you mentioned that it's just a bit of a long question to type up. The best way to ask the questions will just be through the typing. The platform won't allow us to unmute yourselves. So feel free to take your time. We're happy to stay on. In the meantime, Donna has put one through, which is, thank you very much for a comprehensive session tonight. This has been wonderful. I will make contact via email. Oh, Donna, that is exciting for us. We can't wait to hear from you. Mel, if you're happy, feel free to type your response to that one with your direct contact detail. And Donna, that will certainly make it easier for you. It's so confusing with the two Mels. We really should have come up with a plan with this, Mel W and Mel T. Something that's very different we hear is that can't quite stay on top of, getting on top of all the emails in the role. And Kate, you mentioned the importance of organization. How do you stay organized when things are so dynamic?
I think it's just that time allocation to things. It might be the start of each day, spending that half an hour catching up on your emails, and then at the end of the day doing another email check, but not getting sucked into tasks that aren't related to what you need to achieve in that day. I'm a big one for using that little red flag thing on the Outlook where you say, come back to that. And then usually, like I said, Wednesday mornings is a bit of more of a hub day and a bit more of an admin day. So that's a really good one to get back to those things that require a little more digging and searching. And just calendar mapping. So we have some really great platforms that we use for both our note taking as well as our scheduling. And you can actually put everything in there. So you might, whereas when you're a teacher, I find you are just doing admin tasks all over the shop. Whereas with the way we work, you can really schedule those in. You might have an afternoon blocked off as admin time. And that's where you can really get some of those tasks done. The other thing that's really great and appealing for this role, I think for teachers, is all that extra stuff that you do. It's counted as part of your face-to-face requirements. So what I mean when I say that is the sessions that we run with children and families usually go for an hour and a half. That's our standard length of time. But when we say that, what we plan to do usually is an hour and 15 minutes face-to-face with that family, and then the 15 minutes writing our note, sending a follow-up email if required, any extra phone calls or things we need to do, we include within that session time so that you're not then coming back to that later. So that's something that your mentor will really encourage from the get-go, is to include things that you're doing for that child and family within that session time, so that things don't get all muddled and forgotten. When you hop in the car to drive off from that session, it's okay, that child is all sealed up and done until I hear from them again, or until that next session. I can now get my brain thinking about the next person I'm going to see. And the other thing we try and do is be really transparent with the family. Sometimes we'll do our notes, if suitable. Some children, don't allow this to happen. But with some families, we will sit there and do those notes with the family. So we will talk about, okay, so today we talked about that morning routine. We're going to try the visual schedule this week and see how we go. Is there anything particular you want to work on next week? And we'll document that as well. So everything is really transparent, and it's a working relationship rather than you coming in and doing the therapy to the family. Sorry, that was a bit
100%. No, but you've given so much in-depth information, and I love doing the notes with our families. Now, I have got more questions coming through, and one of Vinny's questions is, how do I get my NDIS screening done if I don't have an employer just yet? And Mel Walsh, I can see that you're responding to that one, but did you want to speak to that live? Because the NDIS screening check is a critical part of the compliance aspect to come on board as a key worker.
It is, absolutely. So you don't necessarily have to already have that NDIS worker screening check before you apply for a position with us, as long as you are willing to obtain one before you commence in the role. So at the point that you are successful, you can apply for the NDIS worker screening check, and we can guide you through that process.
And I should clarify as well, it's not just for our key workers, but it's any team member working at Everyday Independence or in the NDIS sector. So if you were wanting to be an OT here or an OT at a different organisation, a key worker, an allied health assistant, admin, we all have to do that compliance check. And I can see there was a question, Mel, that you answered, sorry, Mel Thompson, for what's the work hours? Is it a 8-hour day? Is it a 10-hour day? What's your thoughts on that?
I guess how I responded under the NDIS and for here at EI and any other organisation, there is an expectation of a certain number of billable hours across your working week. So depending on if you're full-time or part-time, what the expectation is for you. Generally, most people have a calendar sort of created for them when they first begin with children, families, participants, as we call them. I'm still getting my head around calling children participants, and that can be quite a change for people. And then as you become familiar with the needs of each of the families that are on your caseload, you can modify your calendar around the needs of those families, but also have some autonomy around what's going to work for you. And as Kate mentioned earlier, if you've got family commitments or there's certain days that you aren't able to start early or can't work a bit later, so you can start to, I guess, mold your calendar so that it works for you and your participants, of course. So yeah, each day can be quite different, and some might be a shorter day and some might be a longer day.
And I actually can say I did this yesterday in particular. I did 2 after-school appointments because I love top-ending my week where it's really busy. But I'm going to finish off early on Friday instead. So I'm going to close the laptop at about 2:30 or 3 o'clock because I've done those additional hours earlier in my week.
Perfect. Yeah.
So we've answered so many questions. I want to say a huge thank you to all of our beautiful panelists tonight who have just been absolute champions for the statements behind them around really striving to create change for our participants, our families and communities. So thank you, Mel, Kate and Mel. If you do have more questions, I hope the takeaway message is reach out. Have a conversation. As much as we want to provide you with the information to know if this role is for you, ask us and we can then refine our answers more so for you. Have a wonderful evening. This presentation will be recorded and distributed as well, and reach out if you require any other assistance. Thank you, everyone.